Afghans are facing a new reality with their country back under Taliban control after 20 years of war.
This whole journey began August 15th, 2021. And for me, like everything that's happened from that time, it's all one moment. The speed of the Taliban resurgence shocked everyone. I turn on the news, and they're at the gates of Kabul.
Armed militants have taken the capital, Kabul, completing their swift advance.
The Taliban takeover stripped away our work. Like, they came and they just took it from us. And the implications were clear from the beginning. Our work with women and girls, you know, like, it's done. We can't keep these kids safely at my mum's orphanages.
Australia's not going to send in special forces to get these children out of Afghanistan.
And so that's when I realized, like, this is on us. If we want to evacuate these people, if we want to get them out, like, we have to do this.
Taliban and FC are fighting. The situation is not okay.
All I know is that I want to take the kids out, but I need help. So my son moved forward to help me.
The kids, they are orphans.
He became like a hero for this evacuation for me.
But do you know how they will cross? Taliban will not leave them crossing the border.
Everything happened in this house. The house was just like a war room.
The situation on the ground is like really different to the advice you receive. The problem is the Taliban don't let you cross the border. Our group got to the border and they're not letting them through.
It's remarkable that someone 26 years old has been a part of something as big as this.
Yeah, still they're coming. They're coming.
So it's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time for them to come. Wait, brother, be patient.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. All I knew is I got to get these kids, I got to get these people out.
There's some issue in between.
I did not think it was going to be this difficult.
Mahboba is one of the single most tenacious forces of nature that I have ever met.
2 houses to run. Sourosh didn't wash all the dishes. He always leave it to me.
She is unstoppable, and it is impossible to not see that in Sourosh. And I think that is what makes them this power duo.
You say, I don't need mother, but you do need mother to make the house look nice and good and clean. This flower.
She's a typical Afghan mum, which means she's overbearing and intense, and she wants you to get married all the time. But you learn how to deal with that.
I'm washing here, I'm washing there, I'm washing everything.
I think that Mahboba likes to think that she has more control of Sourosh, and Sourosh likes to think that he has more control over her.
We're very, very close, but sometimes recently it's too much for him. So I have to back up a little bit and be patient with him.
Did you speak to them about the kids that are coming?
Well, he's talking about evacuation and difficulty and need time to fix everything.
My mum's problem is she does too much. She gives too much, and she's done that for me and my sister, like our whole lives. Where are you guys going today?
Ali's going back to Dad's, and I am going to go have dinner with my friends.
And not just me and my sister, she's done it for thousands.
You did a good job, Mum.
It's nice, eh?
Mm-hmm.
My mum in Afghanistan, she's called like the mother of thousands. All these orphans, they call her mother. And I think that loops back into the origin of how the work began. My mum was born in Kabul. She was a student activist when the Russians invaded, which meant she had to flee when she was 14.
I came to Australia at the age of 18. I had my daughter, then I had one beautiful little boy, Arash. In 1992, it was a July school holiday, and Arash wanted to go with his uncle to Kayama Bulu Hall. They went to have a picnic, and a wave came and washed them all.
A terrible accident this afternoon at one of the most popular tourist sites on the south coast of New South Wales.
All I saw was bodies floating, that's all.
When the tragedy happened to me, it hit me emotionally, physically. I haven't got my period for a couple of years, and I always wanted to have another child. And one day, it happened. For 9 years, I always believed that this is Arash. I have my son back. And that's how I was healing, I guess. And then one day, Sourosh came to me and said, "Mom, I want to be loved not as the son that you lost, as the son that I'm alive." After that, I know that I lost Arash, and this is Sourosh.
When I was around 1, my mum and dad split. My mum raised my sister and I as a single mum, but we've always been close to my dad.
In Sydney's northwest,
Want me to put more sugar?
Mahboba Cina is bringing up 2 children on her own.
That.
The little white hen.
When I lost the son, the direction of my life changed. I said, well, I'm going to give my life to save children. So that's why I established this charity called Mahboba's Promise. There was millions of orphans in Afghanistan. And I built 4 hope houses all over Afghanistan.
The kids in those orphanages are in there for a variety of reasons, each story genuinely more heartbreaking than the one before. Every single one of these kids, they've been in our care for years.
I travel to Afghanistan once a year for 3 months, 4 months. And when I sit on the corner of Hope House and I see these children running around and they call me mother, I cannot believe this is what I've done.
I was born in North Ryde. I've grown up in this house my whole life. I studied law and international studies. And I think just by virtue of who I was, the context I was raised in, with my mum's work, I've always had like a really deep passion for human rights. Also, I've been really involved in community work, and I wanted to give back.
Scrambling to flee Afghanistan, the president is evacuated as the government collapses and the Taliban takes over.
We're deeply, deeply concerned and worried about the orphans that we've got into Kabul, about our staff there, about the families there. It looks like we might have to move them out of the country. I just don't know what the heck is going on. When the Taliban took over, the first thing I knew immediately was we had to get the orphans in our care out. The fundamental risk for all of these people is their association with Australia, with the West, with Western values. I can't put into words how distasteful the idea of these children being with Australians is to the Taliban. For us, it was survival. We were kind of convinced in that moment that it would mean death for these people. We were learning it on the spot. I've never led an evacuation effort in my life. I've never lobbied the government. I don't know how to do all these things, and those are the things that were required, right? From the first day, you're creating all these different lists. Like the first one was 60 people.
Sourosh and I just kind of collided in this kind of immediacy in the evacuation period of Kabul. And he said, you know, we've got all these kids and we're trying to get out stuff. And I said, it's okay, like Rax can help you with the paperwork side of things.
This is what you needed. You would have the name, sex, the relationship to each other, each applicant.
We had to go through that process of who's at more risk than whom and why this person should come over this person.
We were making decisions around, like, basically how to cut people. And how do you make that decision? You can't.
By August 20th, we had amassed a group in Kabul. The Australian government was issuing emergency visas. So you're sending lists to different people in government and you're just hoping something ends up somewhere.
But we need a bit of a champion around it and just a little bit more oomph, like a little bit more pressure from up above.
Nobody really knew what the system was and everybody was just throwing everything they had at the wall to try and you wanted to be on the list.
Thank you so much.
The fundamental priority was always the orphans and then some of the very high-risk staff.
Like, the situation in Afghanistan is just so bad. We have no way to really keep them safe.
We were advocating, following, calling. Have you got our list?
Beautiful.
Who's got it? Who's getting out? How do we get on a flight? Do we send them to the airport?
What we required to make that airport evacuation successful was the emergency visas. 17 were granted visas. The email came through in the morning. No one could tell us how those visas were granted and why. It was just like completely random. When we had a group 200 meters away from the gate, we couldn't get a few soldiers out to guide them in. Like, that's how chaotic it was.
We've got one person telling us to go, another person telling us not to go, and really Sourosh having to make that call of, you know, what do I do?
I was on the phone with them. I could hear the shooting through the phone. I could hear the chaos, I could hear the screaming. And so I made the decision to turn them back around. It broke me a little bit, that moment.
This was definitely the hardest night of my life. And the airport was this thing that just crushed you. Like, it just failed. Like, it wouldn't work. That was crippling.
It was once that last flight left Kabul that we had to regroup and decide, right, you know, what's the next step?
All issuing of emergency visas was cut. Didn't matter who they were just stopped. The airport closed. There was no way to evacuate people. Panjshir Valley fell, the Taliban took it, and they occupied our orphanage, which meant they had access to everything about us. So with the 17 who had emergency visas, we coordinated a ground evacuation via Pakistan, and the embassy in Pakistan picked them up. The Australian government brought them in here, and they quarantined them for 2 weeks. So that was a really successful process.
Signs of relief among a group of orphans after their dramatic escape from Afghanistan.
There is no word to express the feeling, but in top of the moon, I think.
When the first group got out and came here, it was so bittersweet. The lives of those children that arrived changed in an instant. But it's also hard because you have left friends and their family behind.
I had a really mixed reaction to the 17 coming. When they first came, I couldn't see them straight away. I just gave myself a bit of distance. I was focused on like the ones that were left behind. And it wasn't until like I came, I saw them, and when it became real for me, and I was like, hey, like these kids' lives have been saved, like through these efforts. And that's when I became like really happy. Like I let myself feel something. You can't differentiate them from an Aussie like now. Like I thought they would be tripping out as well. Like, what am I doing in Australia? But nah, like after a week, they're just taking it for all that it is. The 17 are here, the core task still remains. Like, how do we evacuate the remaining orphans, widows, and staff? Every single day, I was advocating, lobbying in some way or another for the visas. And we weren't really getting anywhere. We hadn't made proper progress.
We're just waiting to hear from the minister. If we could get visas, we felt like we could achieve everything else. We can't speed it up. There's not another person for us to call.
Most people had given up that the visas would be granted anytime soon.
We're just waiting to hear from Pakistan now.
But for me, I knew like I needed to give like one last shot, like one last push so I can sit down and be like, I did my best here and that's it. And so a plan began to develop in the back of my head with Afghanistan.
I was like, absolutely not. You're not going to Afghanistan. It's too dangerous. It's too risky. But I was overruled. You had to make sure that there was a safe pathway out if we were getting those visas ever.
It's very, very brave of him to go, but if we all are scared of ourselves and scared of our children, then who's going to bring change to the world?
So I came into Afghanistan, and very, very soon it became apparent that we have no ability to provide adequate security for those that are at risk.
He could say, hand on his heart, I've seen it. And that danger is real and we need to act now.
All we need are visas. Once we get those visas, these kids, bam, 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 we can get them out.
Sourosh comes back to Australia and then we just kind of ramped up again. We were granted 91 visas to come to Australia, and about 50 of them are for vulnerable children, including orphans. While we were working on how to get this new group out of Afghanistan, we were also trying to figure out where they would live once they arrived here in Australia. With that number of children, it was a real risk that they would be settled throughout the country. This is not what Mahboba wanted. She wanted them near her, close to her, so she could continue with those relationships with the children.
I am kind of in the middle of what my mum's dream is and what her vision is and what the Australian government requires. So I'm trying to bridge those two worlds together and come to a sweet middle spot. My mum's dream is Hope House Australia.
There's no poverty.
Somewhere where she's with all these kids all the time, 24/7.
So that's Mother Mahboba Village.
We don't do orphanages in Australia, so it's an impossible dream.
It's my children, and it's fine that I respect the law of this country, but the country should respect me as a mother of 1,000 children. For a mother of 1,000, 60 kids is nothing. I can keep them even in my house, and I know I can. To me, it's my way is a little bit from the heart and emotional, but my son will make it practical way possible. To put it this way, my son, why can't you, with your good English, convincing the government, my mother, she don't have 2 children, she's got 1,000 children, for God's sake. Why you can't do that?
It's really easy, don't worry.
It's easy or not easy, you just have to fight, we have to fight for it. If you don't have a gut to fight for it, I will.
Oh? I don't have a gut.
So just
Any ethnic kid watching that, they can relate immediately. Like, why can't you just make the Australian government change all of its laws and just put all these kids the way I want them, you know?
But then why you study law for?
At the moment, some of the kids will be going into foster care immediately with people that they already have a connection with, and the rest will be initially in residential care, and they'll probably like slowly migrate into foster care once we find appropriate families. We really fought to get them in Sydney, and we succeeded, so it's a massive win. My mum, the charity, it needs to be there. I think it's hard for the government to internalise that these kids literally see her as a mother figure. It's a really big cultural difference, but if that's not understood and respected, like, it's going to be very messy. Yeah. How you going?
Good, where's your mum?
She's over there.
Hello.
Months after we've got visas, the children and the carers are still in Kabul, and we start formulating a plan as to how it is that they can travel from Kabul to Islamabad, Pakistan.
The evacuation effort into Pakistan is proving extremely difficult. Did you sleep all right?
No.
Not really.
After months of negotiations, we've managed to secure an amnesty with the Pakistan government, which will allow the children and the adults to cross into Pakistan and then be flown to Australia to safety.
So there's a potential issue in the border with the Pakistani officials because the names won't look the same.
Correct. Despite this, it's still extraordinarily fraught.
3-4 car has been hired, and then good driver with people who knows the way, and then they 3 hours to Khyber Pass, and then waiting on the border. If they pass from Taliban in the border, then the problem is fixed.
But you don't know how the interaction with the Taliban will play out.
You can never really predict what's going to happen on a border, and particularly a border between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
These 3 groups will be leaving tonight. Did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
No.
How do you feel about everything?
I'm so happy. My life will be changed, and I'm proud of my mother, Mahboba.
Now you tell them to not come. For 1 hour, they just wait there because here the situation is not okay.
The first day of evacuations did not go to plan at all. The border was far worse than we expected.
There's a fighting in the border between Taliban.
They were not letting them through. There was a lot of extortion happening.
What the hell is going on?
They knew as soon as we arrived with our passports and visas, we're probably going to the West. Complete chaos after that.
But do you know how they will cross Taliban? Taliban will not leave them to crossing the border.
The guy on the ground said, give me 3 of your boy, the older one. They went with Taliban. I have to wait and see what happened. If they're not, then we know we lost 3 boys. It's getting so difficult.
The border was absolute chaos. Everything was changing minute by minute.
What if they the children disappear? What we gonna do?
Okay, sister, I got all 3. They are with me now. You didn't take any problem.
Thank you so much, brother. I will send the rest of family, but please stay for a few more hours until they all reach to you. Good news.
Unfortunately, despite all of our plans, we were only able to get 11 across of those intended to cross into the border that night.
We've had to regroup, replan, get assistance from like security organizations and other like evacuation experts. Is really bad. Like the border is really bad. So let's see what happens.
We've just received confirmation that they have all crossed into Pakistan. So we're almost there, and this was probably one of the hardest things to overcome, which was the big group.
How good is that?
So it's incredible relief.
So I don't know if you can relax. Can you ever really relax?
When the plan A wasn't working, we got plan B with somebody else, but we just suddenly decided, no, we do it Afghani way.
Thank God most of them are in. I think like 3 days ago, honestly, it was just so unclear if it would happen, and it's a miracle that it has. Like, we did not think that the borders would be this difficult.
Yeah. For everyone that's crossed, there's still one that's left behind.
Yep.
And so it's very difficult to fully celebrate whilst you still have some left behind.
You're operating consistently in a crisis zone. So you're like it's just adrenaline, and you're operating way beyond your capacity.
I can see that it's too much for my beloved son, but I believe that even though I feel guilty about it, all these other children is my children as well. Like, what else I could have done as a mother?
Your baggage reclaim is Carousel 5.
Seeing the kids and the families arrive over the past 10 days is an incredible thing. In that moment, their lives have shifted insurmountably. And to see that and feel that and be a part of that is beyond words.
It's so lovely to see them. They're beautiful. I'm so excited about having them.
But every celebration of someone crossing is immediately followed with that gut-wrenching realisation that there are those that are stuck and that we haven't got out, and that remain in these perilous situations. So there is this immediate high and an immediate low in every single moment throughout this process.
Every morning, kids pick up their bag and all these young girls goes to school. So it's something historical moment, something huge, something beautiful will come out of all of this.
It's an incredible thing that Australia has stepped in to take responsibility for these lives. We have an incredible capacity to make an impact on the world around us. Every single person. It is actually so much easier than people think. If responsibility comes to your doorstep, you have to take it.
Thank you for traveling with Singapore Airlines and welcome to Sydney.